Good afternoon, everybody. Want to do a video today about what's happening in Venezuela. And I imagine, because I ramble a lot and can't stay on topic, that it'll be two parts to the video. But the first part is I'm going to kind of set the stage here, and I guess I can start by saying there's always a lot of people that have something to say. You go on the news, you hear what they have to say, you hear their ideology. A lot of times they're talking about something and they have no education on the subject. There's a lot of talking heads now. You go on there, there's podcasts, people talking. They're, trying to push the narrative of one side or another, but there's no real intelligence to what they're saying because they don't know what they're talking about. It's kind of like if I'm a mechanic and I'm working on my car, and let's say that I'm going to put head gaskets on a 5.7 Chevrolet car, 350 Chevrolet engine, and then some guy comes out that's never even checked his oil, hasn't tightened the battery cable, or even changed the tire, that knows absolutely nothing about cars, and he's going to run his mouth and talk about, how I'm doing this wrong, how I'm doing that wrong, this is the way it should be done. He's just a talking head. He don't know what he's talking about. He's not educated, and, I've seen this happen a lot. I've seen an episode of Tucker Carlson where he was talking to Ted Cruz, and they were talking about, Iran and these other countries and like invading there and doing this. And Tucker Carlson asked him, he goes, do you know how many people's in that country? And Ted Cruz like, oh, well, no, I don't. Guess I know the population of it. And he goes, well, do you know the demographics of it? Like the people there, the customs, the things that are going on there in that country. Well, no. I guess I'm not educated like you, Tucker. I guess I don't know the demographics and, what kind of people are there. Well, how many Muslims are there? How many Christians are there? This, that, and that. And he couldn't answer the question. And Tucker Carlson had a good point. He goes, you want to go into a country and invade a country that you know absolutely nothing about. Now, how much sense does that make? It's not, there's no intelligence in that. Let's go in here and do a regime change, or let's go do something in a place that we know absolutely nothing about, but it seems like a good idea, and that's usually where we're at, just like I have a family member that's, he's pretty staunch MAGA, like he's really hard to talk to about politics because you can't understand what he's saying because he's too busy kissing Trump's ass from the back. Literally. Like, it's that bad. It's like, hey, when you're going to talk to me, like, eat a breath mint or something so you can get the smell of Trump's ass off your breath when you're speaking to me, because he's got his nose buried so far up Trump's ass, and he's the greatest thing, and he's going to fix the world, and he's going to get rid of all these, these terrible killers and rapists and things out of our country, and he's an authority on everything about immigrants from everywhere, and he's an authority on what it's going to take to fix the United States and all this, but he can't tell you anything about Venezuela or who Trinidad Rockwood is, or he can't tell you anything about Colombia or Cuba or Haiti or Somalia or anything where a lot of these immigrants come from Ukraine or whatever. Yes, what's going on in Ukraine? Well, there's a war. Well, why is there a war? Well, who's Putin? Why is he doing what he's doing? Is it just because he doesn't know? He's never been out of his own backyard. He's, never left the country, knows nothing about geography or any of these other countries. He's just a talking head, and he's further pushing a false narrative from someone that's told him what he's wanted to hear and brainwashed him and used all of these things to brainwash him. Like, oh, they're sending their worst, they're doing this, they're doing that. They will say all these people are committing all these heinous crimes and doing all this. But when you really look, only about 1%, maybe 2% of immigrants commit a heinous crime. And then he'll go, well, they shouldn't even be here committing a crime anyway. They shouldn't even be in our country. Well, that's your argument, dude. What about the 98% of the crimes that are committed by people that were born and raised in the country? Well, he doesn't want to hear that. And he's one of them people that he'll talk even louder and try to overtalk you and get to where you can't get a word in edgewise, and he thinks that's a debate and he's winning just because he can talk louder than you. And you're not hearing what I'm saying. If I talk loud enough, maybe you'll hear me. Let me talk louder so you can hear me and I can get my point across. And I hate that. It's a typical far-right MAGA so-called Christian movement Republican narrative, and that's just what they do. They spin a bunch of false things. They beat and beat and beat and beat the same thing over and over again until there's enough low IQ Neanderthal people that believe that and will go down and put a check mark by somebody's name and give them a position of power because they're going to solve everything and they're going to fix everything. But they don't look at all the different angles of it and realize, when you listen to this leader talk, like Donald Trump, for instance, when you listen to him talk over and over and over again, everything he says contradicts. It's a contradiction. Everything he says and does contradicts each other. And, like, we can go on Fox News and I can go to rallies and I can say the same thing over and over and over and over again. And when I get the news media on board and they're showing the same case over and over again where some girl was brutally murdered, and it was like, well, you should say her name, you should say her name. That guy did this, and he shouldn't have been here. Biden opened the borders, and he did this. And they take those 4 or 5 of the most heinous things they can find that fits their narrative, and they talk about them over and over and over and over again until they scare people. They get people believing all this and just basically brainwash people into thinking, oh, they're going to come save us, and they understand what's going on, and look at what's going on. And I got kids and grandkids, and man, I can't have my people going down there to Walmart because you can't trust these immigrants, and they sound different, speak different, and they're garbage, and they were released from mental institutions and all this. It's like lions and tigers and bears, oh my, to the point where you got people so scared, and it's like you can't tell them the least of your worries is that immigrant, bro. Like, they commit 2% of the crimes. The 98% is committed by people that are citizens. So if you're worried about that, you need to look what's going on in your own community. You need to look how parents are raising their kids. You need to look at the problem. Is it drugs? Is it this? Is it that? In our own country, what's going on, and figure out who you should really be scared of. Is it the guy down there peddling the drugs? Is it the person that comes up and sticks a gun in your face and tries to take your phone and your billfold and carjack your car? He's not from Somalia, bro. He's not from Venezuela, bro. He's from here. And that's what you should be doing, keeping your head on a swivel and watching, because, like, you're looking in the wrong direction, man. Like, there's a lot of good people come from those countries. Yes, there's always going to be someone bad in any group of people, but you can't take and the 1 or 2 bad people make that about everybody from that location, That'd be like me going, hey, I just delivered in West Virginia and everybody down there's got 2 teeth and they're married to their sister. Well, that's not true. There probably is some up there in the hills. I've seen some people that kind of look like there's some inbreeding and stuff going on, but I can't say that everyone there is like that. That's like calling one state, one group of people the same. Just like Donald Trump does with, oh, these leftists are lunatics and this and that and other, and oh, he's not really a Republican because the Republicans are this way or whatever. No, there's all different kinds of people with all different kinds of ideology. And, there's some people that are kind of fucking far left radical, let's just face it. But there's some people that are fucking far right radical. And this Trump derangement syndrome goes both ways. There's some people that if Trump did something right, they couldn't give him credit for it no matter what. Now, I ain't going to lie to you. It'd be hard to find something he did right. I say that, they'll go, oh, you're a leftist. No, I'm not, But I'm not a real far-right MAGA. And I'm proud of that fact. Because there's some people in that real far-right MAGA category that has a form of Trump derangement syndrome. And that's that they're so deranged by Donald Trump that they believe everything he says is the gospel, to the point where they treat him like he's Jesus Christ or something, like he's the savior of the world. And that's so far from the truth, And again, I said this before, they cannot say this MAGA is a Christian movement. Maybe there are some Christians that are involved in this, and if they watch something besides Fox News, or they expanded their horizons, or they learned a little bit of history and geography and things about what's going on in other places and globally around the world, and about economics and things that they might start looking differently, and when they went to church, they might repent for their way of thinking, because everything that this regime, and that's what it is, it's not an administration, this is a regime. It's like Donald Trump is Nicolas Maduro 2.0. We just haven't quite got there. He's a Hugo Chavez 2.0. We just haven't quite got that far, but I don't know. Looking around, it's looking familiar. If you'd have went down and walked the streets of Venezuela, it looks pretty familiar, You can't speak against the regime, you can't do anything, or they'll target you, We got a bunch of military groups running around the streets, supposed to be getting the worst of the worst, but there's not as many as what they say there is, and they've run out of kind of people to chase, and the ones, maybe have already left the country or left went back where they come from, or maybe they're hid out pretty good and they can't find them, so they're, trying to get 3,000 people a day. We're harassing citizens and stuff now. We're killing people, U.S. citizens in the street, shooting them, like in Minneapolis. So, it's happening. Like people being detained, no due process, no nothing, sent to prison camps. If you look at this, how is that any different than the humanitarian crisis that was going on in Venezuela? I haven't seen any evidence or heard any evidence of taking the people down there to Florida and pouring orange juice on them so it attracts the mosquitoes and they get eat up with mosquitoes, and, just basically waterboarding them, burning them, cut their finger off, cauterize them with a cigarette lighter to keep them from bleeding out. I haven't seen any evidence of that yet, but in the direction we're heading, it's coming. And it seems like that to me. But I'm not going to jump up and down and shout from the streets that that's what's going on and really try to push that narrative until I start seeing a lot of evidence of it. And I can take an isolated case or two and go, well, that could have basically been the officer. Was just kind of some thug, some redneck thug or some racist redneck thug. And I could actually probably say that if I couldn't look at the administration and see people like Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem and people like that pushing for that, and listening to Donald Trump in the background going, we got to get rougher with these people. We got to do this. I want to see 3,000 deportations a day, and whatever you got to do, it doesn't even matter. There's all the evidence is there. Listen to him speak, and his whole life has been a contradiction if you've paid attention longer than what he's just been kind of on the scene as a political figure, and became some populist candidate or whatever. So if you look at his whole life, everything that he speaks about is a contradiction. Everything that he said when he was on the campaign trail to what it is now, these loyalists of his, these collectivos, we could say, the MAGA Trump hardcore followers, kind of like they got in Venezuela, the Chavistas, the collectivos that follow after him, they'll say, oh, this is what I voted for. He's doing what he said he was going to do. No, he's not. He said, we're going to not make all these wars. We're pulling out of all these countries. We're not going to occupy them. We're not going to do regime changes and spend our money and our resources on never-ending wars and regime changes and things like this. We're going to make America great again, and we're going to do things different, and we're going to take care of our people at home and do all this. And here we are. Look around. It's regime change, except for he didn't even accomplish changing the regime. That's kind of something. I'm chasing rabbits all different directions here, trying to stay on point. But how did things change for the people of Venezuela? Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of good people in Venezuela, and if they're allowed to have a voice without being persecuted for their thoughts against Nicolas Maduro and the regime, they would tell you they're happy that Nicolas Maduro is gone. But the regime is still in place. The vice president's there, the generals are there, they're little armed groups of citizens like the neighborhood watches that keep everything in check and turn in anyone that speaks against the regime and reports it to where the police and the military come in the middle of the night and that person disappears or gets locked up in prison for fighting the system. Those people are all still there. The collectivos, which is kind of like like a bunch of minions for a cartel leader almost. Like they're hitmen and gangsters and motorcycle gangsters and people like this that live there that are loyalists to the regime. Kind of like a bunch of Proud Boys and you know, kind of like a bunch of Nazi thugs, dude, really. And you got the Cubans and stuff that they're the military people from Cuba that guard, you know, him. A few of those got killed, but there's still a lot of them in place, and they're all about keeping the regime together and keeping Venezuela just the way Hugo Chavez set it up, and then put Nicolas Maduro in charge right before he died to take care of all of it and keep it going that direction. They're all still in place. So if you are fooled by thinking that we done a regime change, wake up, because it didn't happen. And the only way to do a full regime change and to fix anything there and go get the beautiful oil, we're all going to be rich and Venezuela's going to get a little and we're going to get a lot. The only way we're going to do that is boats on the ground, security guarantees, military contractors and stuff to protect any infrastructure we build from being like sabotaged, and to give protections to the people that are in there building the infrastructure, and to the oil company executives and the people that are going in there, the workers that are going in there trying to get everything fixed and get it back online where you can pump oil efficiently again. And you're going to go try to fix the electrical grid, and these guys are going to come behind you and they're going to sabotage it because they don't like Americans. Their leader was captured by the Americans. They want their leader back. And the other leaders are still in place, and that's their narrative. And they can sit here all they want and say, oh, well, they're working with us. Until when are they not working with you? Maybe they'll let you get their infrastructure back online. Maybe they'll let you fix some things. Maybe they'll let you get them pumping on again until they don't want you to, and then it's boots on the ground because you're going to have to go in there and force and fix things. How long does that take? It's not a month. It's not 6 months. I don't think it's a year. To be honest with you, as fragmented and as unmaintained and as bad as their resources are, and I know this firsthand, it could take 5 to 10 years to do that. So do we go and dip the coffers that are empty already and just go, well, okay, we're just going to print more money then, and we're going to invest billions, and made billions with a B, possibly trillions with a T, to go in there and fix everything and get everything good and back online where we can extract this oil? And is it worth it? And are we really just basically taking the taxpayer dollars of Americans and writing a check to the oil companies for it? Better than doing a regime change, they should have just printed some money and handed the oil companies trillions of dollars. That's what they should have done. It'd have been the same difference. But we won't have dead soldiers coming home in flag-draped coffins, basically, because that's what we're looking at. That's what we're looking at. If you pull out now, nothing's changed for the Venezuelan people. You're getting 800,000 barrels of oil a day. Even if you just keep stealing their oil, you get 800,000 barrels a day. You know, because they can't really produce anything. Everything, like I say, is fragmented. It hasn't been maintained, you know, and they're not just going to keep pumping the oil and let you take their tankers. They're going to still send shadow tankers, and you're going to have to take every one of them. You have to sanction every one of them. We're going to have our military sitting out there for the next 30 years stealing oil. Or you have to go fix it. There's one way to fix it. That's boots on the ground. Well, we're not going to do boots on the ground. There's no reason to. They're working with us. Okay. You know? And I wonder, with the leader that we have, who is like a 7-year-old child, and when he gets his little feelings hurt, he wants to retaliate or pout or throw a fit. If he didn't go over there and grab Nicolas Maduro just because he did a little dance or said something or did something that made Donald Trump mad, he thought, well, I'll show him. And he didn't think past the nose on his face about what happens now. Does it get better or worse for the Venezuelan people? There's a lot of Venezuelan people that are good people, and they are happy that Nicolas Maduro is gone. You know? But in time, they'll realize that nothing's changed because the regime is still in place. You know? If you come and got Donald Trump and kidnapped him out of America and took him away, what changes? You still got Stephen Miller, you got Marco Rubio, you got J.D. Vance, you got Kristi Noem, you got all these people up there, you got the same congressmen, senators, everybody with this same weird ideology, and they're still in control. They still control the House and the Senate right now. What changes? Nothing. Nothing changes. It's still business as usual. You know? But let's go deeper than that. Let's say you got everyone in the regime, you had a fair election, they all stepped down, and they conceded and went on their way. There's still generals that don't want to concede and go on their way. They're running the oil sector, they're running the shipping ports, they're doing this with their military, and this is what they've always done, and they don't lose their job. They don't want to step down, and they're loyalists to this socialist ideology and the things that Nicolas Maduro and Chavez and all them put in place, and they're not going to walk away that easy, so you're going to have to fight them out of power. But let's go farther than that. Then you got the collectivos, you got to go in there, the armed groups and the gangsters and stuff, and get them out. And then there's going to be other people, these military, anti-government groups, and everybody's going to get involved, and they're going to be trying to come in there and get their hands on stuff and steal and pillage and plunder, because that's just the new way that we do things now in this world. And so you're going to have to be fighting with them. So, I mean, it's a military action. That's what it is. You could just launch some bombs over there and just blow it off the face of the planet. It doesn't exist anymore. I'd like to hope they didn't do that and kill a lot of innocent people. I wonder sometimes with this leader that we have, you know, and the way it seems like his brain functions, if something like that couldn't happen, because he does seem a little deranged, you know. But I guess that's all a matter of opinion, because he passed the cognitive tests. He aced them. He knows what a giraffe is when you show him a picture of it, an elephant. You know, I mean, come on, man. So, here we are. So, before we go any further, I wanted to tell people a little bit about Venezuela and what got this, you know, kind of what's happening here. They stole our oil. They did this, they did that. Well, let's delve into the history of Venezuela. And in part 2, I'm going to talk about the history of Venezuela and give you a little education on how this come by from the time they found oil and realized there was oil there to where we are right now. And the suffering of the people of Venezuela and the things they went through, the good times, the bad times, and all of this. And I've tried to educate myself about this so that I'm not one of those people that is not a mechanic, but I'm going to try to tell everyone how to work on a car when I haven't never even changed the tire or aired up a flat. So, you know, or check the oil. So, you know, the best way to do that is look at the history of kind of what's happening, and then you can look at that history and you can look at it from the far right or the far left, but what is there is there. It's kind of basically what happened. It's wrote down as to what happened, and, you know, a bunch of think tank people got together and they put it in Wikipedia or did whatever, but I mean, if you study what's going on and you've talked to people on the ground and you know people from that area, people that have lived through that and can explain, hey, this is what happened, this is how things come about, this is our oil company, this is how they were designed and formed by the government, and all this, you get a little education about what's going on. And so then when someone says something, you can say, no, that's not the case, or yeah, you are right about this, but you're not right about that. And I see a full regime change. I see boots on the ground in the future, and I see this taking a long time and costing a lot of money, and we're basically doing this in order to get the oil, get the minerals, get the things. It's not just about oil neither. It's about silver, platinum, gold, lithium, you know, things like this that are needed for this technology, and Venezuela has that. You know, they have a lot of those resources, rare earth minerals. I mean, if you face the big facts about this, day one, Donald Trump Jr. goes to Greenland, and nothing happens there. We preach about Canada becoming the 51st state. They balked on that idea. It's like, nope, not doing that. So, do we go to war with them and take that over? Do we go to war with Greenland and take it over so we can get the rare earth minerals to make the Trump brand bigger and make his family richer with their tech and their AI and all the stuff they're getting into and the crypto and all this stuff. Do we do that to make them rich? Well, no, we can't really do that right now. So what are we going to do? Who's on our sides? Who can we? Venezuela. There we go. And we can do this under the guise of Nicolas Maduro. Everybody wants him out. He's an illegitimate president. He didn't really win the elections, and we can go in there. Nobody's going to care about that because he's a thug. And then we can take over everything. We can exert our force through our powerful military that we got, and we can get Europe and them to cripple them with, their financial stuff. And between military force and financial stuff, they'll bend over and kiss our ass on Main Street and give us whatever we want. And now here we are. Here we are. So, we've done a regime change. No, we haven't. The regime is still in place. So where do we go from here? You mark my word, if there was a bet that you could put money on boots on the ground, I would sell everything I got and invest in that bet because it will pay dearly. And hopefully it's good odds, 1,000 to 1 or something. When Trump's saying, no, we're not doing boots on the ground, give it a minute. Whatever he says, bet the opposite, and you'll be more wealthy than him if you got enough money to bet at the right odds. So there you go. Somebody did that the other day. It seems like somebody bet on an invasion of Venezuela, and they made a pretty hefty they cashed in a pretty hefty little pot on that, So here we are, But I want to give everybody a little education on the whole Venezuela thing where they can better understand what's really going on. It's not even 100% about the oil. It's about resources and minerals and all this. But how much does it cost to be able to turn around and get those things, and how much do we recoup from those things to pay back the coffers of the money we printed to go do this? Is it worth it? And like I say, wouldn't it have been easier just to print some money, write a check over to the oil companies and your big tech companies and your billionaires and go, here you go, just take this money and be happy? Because that's essentially all we're doing. We're trading U.S. taxpayer dollars. We're taking those U.S. taxpayer dollars and basically exchanging hands over to these rich, wealthy oil companies and people like that. That's basically all we're doing, because they're giving them guarantees on their investments. They're going to guarantee that they can go in there and do that and be safe and do all this. They're going to have to, which means billions and trillions of dollars for, not to mention aid for people there, humanitarian aid, which I'm cool with. Feeding people, taking care of people, I've always been down with that. If people are down and out, help them out, dude. I'm down with that. I'd rather see the money go to that than anything else. But military salaries, equipment, weapons, which will also make these warmonger, neocon, military complex people rich too. So there's a lot of people going to gain on this. But how does the American people gain? How does the people of Venezuela gain? It doesn't ever seem to trickle down that way. This trickle-down economics for a long time has never trickled down anymore like it used to a little bit. It kind of stays up there in the rich and wealthy people's hands. So there you go. That's the way it'll be. But anyway, I wanted to share this today. This is part 1 of part 2. I'm going to get to the meat and potatoes here in part 2. If you watch part 2, just kind of trying to get this channel going. I would love it if you'd like and subscribe and kind of watch what I got to say sometimes. And, I welcome the comments, whether you're criticizing, whether you're mad, you want to call me names or whatever. I guess it makes no difference. Do what you do. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. We live in a free country. I believe in the Constitution. Free to say whatever you want, So, and if I'm wrong about something, hey, I'm the first one that if I see I'm wrong, somebody says something, opens my eyes to something, I'll come back and apologize and agree, and say, hey, I agree with you. You were right. I was wrong. I misspoke, or you misunderstood what I said or whatever. So I always welcome comments, like, share, subscribe, and, kind of help me out here build this channel. I work every day. I do transport work. I'm, moving trucks and buses all across the United States. I pay my bills. It's not about, I'm going to make millions on YouTube. Don't think I will, but I like to get a message out. I like to share things with people, give people a different take on things and things to think about. So, if you can help me out with doing that, I'd appreciate that. And y'all have a good evening and be blessed, and stay tuned for part 2. Thank you.